Hello and welcome to today's episode of Who Are You? The Bobcats You Know, the Stories You Don't. I'm your host, Joel Vanner, inside the podcast studio at Quinnipiac University's School of Communications. And I am honored today to be joined by a very special guest, Quinnipiac's President Marie Hardin. Dr. Hardin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Joel.
So I ask every guest this first question. It's an easy question, but it's the name of the show. Dr. Hardin, tell me, who are you?
I'm the 10th president of Quinnipiac University, but I would add to that I'm a runner, I'm a reader, I'm an explorer, I'm a dog owner, and I think, an all-around curious person.
Okay.
So there you go.
That's a good start. And being so close to Sleeping Giant State Park, I'm sure running, reading, exploring, all of those things, if you've had an opportunity to take advantage of it over there.
Absolutely. My husband and I love Sleeping Giant. We love just exploring Connecticut. It is phenomenal. Yeah.
It is very, very, very pretty. And so is our campus here. You started talking about your passions, I think. You talked about reading and running and being a dog owner.
Yes.
Growing up, what were you passionate about? What experiences did you have that led to passions maybe in the professional side? Yeah,
I appreciate that question because I think that those childhood passions often shape who we are and our career paths. And I'm very fortunate as I look back and I think about my period growing up. I was a reader from a very young age. My family didn't have a lot of money, but I knew the books in the library were free. So my mom would take us to the library and I would load up on books. And that was a wonderful way to escape and to learn about the world. So that was a big part of sort of my identity, I think, as a kid growing up. I can remember the first time I laced up a pair of tennis shoes and went outside for a run. I was 12 years old and I was curious about what it would be like to run around the block it was a mile around the block, and I had my little canvas tennis shoes. And it turned out that I loved that too. I was very involved in sports as a kid, and that was a big part of my identity. I had a sister who was close in age, and she and I ran track together, and we played basketball and volleyball. And
which was your favorite out of those?
I think it was track and cross country.
Okay.
I loved playing basketball, but track and cross country, I loved the freedom of sort of knowing that I could blaze a trail with my running shoes on. I love that.
How did your passions lead you to where you are today as Quinnipiac's 10th president? I know there are multiple stops along the way, so we'll go back to those first stops.
Yes.
Did it start for you when you were in college? What was your college experience like? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I went to a small private college, enjoyed it very much, made lifelong friends, all the things that I hope that Quinnipiac students get from Quinnipiac. I got from my college experience. I fell in love with higher ed because I was the first young person, first person in my family to go to college, and I saw it as a way to the kind of as a path to the kind of life I wanted, and so I wanted to get involved in helping others have that same access to that path and the kind of freedom that higher education provides for young people. That was really important to me. So I was inspired pretty early on that I wanted to make higher education my career path. And it came from my own experience. I think that's true for a lot of people.
And you were at Penn State for about 21 years.
Yeah, I was. Yes, long time.
As their dean of the College of Communications there. You're here now at Quinnipiac as our president.
Yes.
With that passion for higher education, showing students how education can make a difference, raise them up in their lives, what drew you to Quinnipiac and what we have here to offer?
This is a really special place to me, and I know a lot of people say that. So I know saying that is not anything particularly unusual. But I think when you and I tell this to students when they're thinking about a college. Where are they going to go to college? I say, trust your instincts. So how do you feel when you step onto the campus? How do you feel when you interact with the community? And I tell students, you're gonna find that moment when you step onto a campus and it just feels like home.
It clicks.
It clicks.
Yep.
Yes, and obviously it did that for you.
It did. I took advantage of the Be a Bobcat for a Day program through the Office of Admissions, and I got to shadow a communication student for the day. After that, I decided this was the place for me, and I actually worked with that student in student media for Q30 Television, which is the student-run television station here. So not only did they introduce me to the community, but I got to work alongside them when I came here as a student, which was an awesome experience.
That is a great story. So at some point during that day, you sort of, that first day when you were having that experience, something told you that this place felt like home, right?
Yeah. I think it was the genuine experience I had. When I shadowed the student, it didn't seem forced, that they had to not show me this part, but show me this part, not do this, but we have to do this. It was come and see my day.
Yeah.
All of my day. Eating in the dining hall, maybe not the most interesting, but it's my day.
Yeah.
Going online, submitting my homework, not the most interesting, but it's part of the student experience. It's part of my day.
Yeah.
It's part of the Quinnipiac experience that you get.
Yeah. And so at some point during that day, you could see yourself as a student here, right?
Absolutely.
So I would say that is really powerful, and we want every Quinnipiac student to experience that powerful feeling and then that attraction like a magnet to Quinnipiac, right? So I would say the same thing is true for me. My interaction with people at Quinnipiac and my understanding of the institution was always one that was very appealing to me, and I knew I would feel at home here, and that bore itself out. Yeah.
In a past interview, and I have it right here so I quote you correctly, with Culture Central at Penn State, you said, quote, "The leadership journey is one that can span a lifetime." You're here at Quinnipiac as our president. Was there an inflection point where you realized that leading a university was that next step for you with all of the passions and knowledge you had of higher education?
That's a great question.
Sorry for the hard question.
No, I appreciate that. And I do think leadership is a journey. And I think that you grow through the journey. And when you grow on that journey, logical next steps, I think, make themselves apparent. Okay, so I was dean for more than a decade at Penn State and loved it, and had a number of other positions at Penn State. At some point, I started thinking about what's a logical next step for me, and I have really good mentorship. People who've been advisors and counselors to me over the years, and they were suggesting to me, and I thought, I'm going to listen to this. They were suggesting to me that a presidency would be a logical next step for me. And I decided to be open to the possibility. And I like to be open to possibilities, let my curiosity drive me. And when I'm fortunate enough to have an opportunity presented to me, if it feels good, say yes.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Right. We've had a lot of students on the show and some faculty too sharing their experience. And they say life's not linear, right? They take some detours here. Maybe it turns out to be something, maybe it doesn't, but they get that experience and they take it with them to their next opportunity. Yes,
I think that's very true. And that's a good way to think about things. You have to be open to the way the river winds, right?
Right.
And not. I like to think also, don't fight the current.
Right.
So that's worked for me.
It's bringing you somewhere for a reason, right?
That's right.
The windy river, the higher education landscape. What do you see as Quinnipiac's most unique strength in the landscape that we have today in higher ed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think it's important for a president to be able to assess that early, and the only way you can assess that is by being at the institution, in the daily life of the institution, talking to people, asking lots of questions, observing things. I think a unique strength of Quinnipiac is dedicated and striving for high quality always, and one that is willing to, how can I put this, to move when it needs to move. So it strikes a really powerful balance. It's nimble as nimble can be described in higher ed terms.
Right.
Is the way I would put it. Right. So it does the things that we expect of higher education in terms of being thoughtful and deliberate, but it's able to do it at good speed, and I would say that's unique.
And our community here certainly
Absolutely.
helps, being open, having conversations. I know you've had office hours already here.
Yes.
I know some staff who've taken advantage of that. If you could sit down, though, with every first-year student and tell them something that you would want them to carry through their college experience, maybe it's their first week, they're unsure, scared, maybe first time away from home, maybe first generation college student. What would you tell them looking back on all your experience and what you know today? Yeah,
that's a great question. What I would tell them is, first of all, let curiosity drive you. When you are tempted to make a judgment about a situation, a scenario, a conversation, a comment, ask yourself, how can I be curious about this before I reach a conclusion, before I judge? And I think that's really important because that's part of the learning process. Mm-hmm. And I think a second thing I would tell them is, I'm going to boil it way down, but understand that you often need to take a step before you're going to feel good about before you're going to feel good. I say do good before you feel good. And what I mean by that is if you wait until you feel like doing things, you've probably waited too long if you know it's something you need to do.
Sure.
So do the thing. Like if you're sitting in your dorm room by yourself and you don't feel like going out and interacting and engaging with others, but that little voice is telling you that's what you should do, go ahead and do the thing and know that you'll feel better after you do it. Don't wait to feel like doing it, if this makes sense.
Right.
Do good before you feel good.
And convenience is probably not a characteristic you should judge those decisions against either, because sometimes things in life aren't convenient for you. And
yes.
Those are the best learning opportunities for you.
Yeah, I really like that. I haven't thought about it that way, but I think you are exactly right. This whole notion of not waiting until it's convenient.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Sometimes it hurts to admit because you kind of just want to, chill some days and not take that big step, but you have to because it may never be the right time.
Exactly. No, thank you.
So that's my piece of advice, I guess, that I would offer on the show. But what's the best piece of advice that you have ever received that you continue to carry with you today?
I think it's this idea of being curious before being judgmental. That's been very helpful for me because, especially in these kinds of leadership positions, you need to ensure that you have the right information before making a decision. You're never going to have all the information you need, but to act on a single piece of information without being curious enough to try to learn more, I think is dangerous. So being curious has served me very well. And it's helped me change. I'll make an assumption and I'll decide, you need to test that assumption. And when I do that, it's often very helpful. And
you've done that through the office hours. You've done that through the listening tours that you've done around campus as well, through the strategic visioning processes that we're going through. Kind of an alumni-focused question. As you've met a lot of members of the Quinnipiac community and you're thinking about Quinnipiac and where it is now and where it could go, why is now such a great time to continue to be involved, get more involved, or come back to being involved with Quinnipiac? Well, I would turn that question on you because you are an alum. What would you say? That's a very good question. Why now, Joel? I would say there's a lot of momentum here. There's a lot of momentum in the right ways. We talked about the higher education landscape being a windy river to navigate. I think the things we're doing here are awesome things. The experiences that students are having, they're sharing on this program, they're changing lives, they're showing career paths. I think it's just a lot of great momentum in a sea of things that could really get you down some days.
Yeah.
You just have to look in the house and see all the great things that are cooking around, right?
Yes.
And the impact that people are having in Hamden, in Connecticut, around the world as part of the alumni network.
Yeah, I like that. I would layer onto that every institution of higher education right now is facing serious headwinds. There are many, many challenges, short and long term, to the viability of higher education, and I could talk at length about those. But the alumni become increasingly important to supporting the institution, and people immediately think financially, yeah, that's important. It's also important that the institution, that Quinnipiac, feel the support of its alumni related to its mission. And having the support and knowing that there's a large community out there that is in our corner during very challenging times is incredibly important. So the love of the alumni for this institution is a great source of strength and energy for us. So that's how I would layer on to what you said.
So you mentioned headwinds in higher education that the landscape is facing, but also here at Quinnipiac we'll have to face in some aspect as well. What do you think those are, and what does that mean for Quinnipiac at this time?
I really appreciate that. I would tell you a couple of things. Quinnipiac is in a category of university that is facing a certain set of headwinds that perhaps other institutions aren't facing, and vice versa, right? We're not a big R1, and those institutions are facing certain kinds of pressures. For Quinnipiac and peer institutions, it's much more about the enrollment pressures that we are going to continue to face because the population of high school graduates is shrinking. It's also about, to be quite honest with you, the cost of higher education for the hardworking families we serve, right? We, in many ways, Quinnipiac serves the mighty middle. There have been a lot of questions about the price of higher education and the affordability of it. And then the other thing I would tell you is we think about the ways new technologies and digital technologies have changed expectations of students about how they want to learn. We still operate, higher ed in general operates on this, I call it the factory model of higher education. And more, I think, students expect a more, I'm going to say, kind of an on-demand experience where online education is powerfully integrated. At the same time now, we have the challenge of AI.
Sure.
So a lot of pressures there on higher education, and especially on institutions like Quinnipiac that are tuition-driven, enrollment-driven. So those are a lot of things we've been thinking about lately.
I teach a whole course on AI in the School of Communications. It's called Is AI Taking Over? We talk about politics, business, communications. We talk a lot about AI in the music industry. It's impacting higher education, but it's also impacting the areas that students are coming to study in too.
Yes, exactly. So you know what I'm talking about here. Yeah.
What are some ways that you hope alumni can help drive the mission of Quinnipiac, bring refreshed perspectives, contribute back to the community?
I really appreciate that, because I want to be clear that the most successful institutions, the institutions that will thrive in coming years and decades, are ones that have a robust, strong, active alumni base. And of course, immediately we think about financial support. Listen, that's important, really important, especially for the students who come here from financially challenged backgrounds and need help to get to the finish line, need financial support. But there are other ways that we need alumni to be engaged with us. We need alumni to be willing to make connections for each other, for one another, and for the institution. That's a great benefit, not only to Quinnipiac, but for alumni themselves. So that networking and that outreach is really important. And then also being willing to contribute to the thought that needs to happen here at the university in all the disciplines that we are engaged with here, and in helping us think about the really thorny challenges that I just described earlier. So those are just a few ways that we need alumni engagement.
And I think based on my own time here, and again, the students that have sat in that chair and shared their experience, the mentorship and the connection, we learn that in the classroom, right? We connect with our faculty who are having a day job, hosting the news, coming at night, teaching a journalism class. You're making that industry connection. And maybe that's helping get you an internship or with a post-graduation opportunity as well. And it's continuing that thought of connecting once you leave and you're out into the workforce.
Exactly. You captured it very well.
I remember it was a couple months ago, we had the faculty and staff alumni breakfast that you spoke at. And I think even just looking around that room too, myself included, at the alumni that chose to come back, continue that momentum, that has to be very powerful for you too as president of Quinnipiac.
Absolutely. This idea, and you're a great example of this, alumni who they've had that student experience and they choose to sort of pay it forward, right? In a very direct way. They become directly involved with the institution. They work for Quinnipiac. They know what the institution, what the university did for them, and they want to be a direct part of the institution serving students.
Finally, when students, faculty, and staff look back years from now, what do you hope they remember most about Quinnipiac under your leadership?
That Quinnipiac was able to lead in terms of the landscape of higher education in ways that empowered our students, that prepared them for jobs in a incredibly fast-changing cultural, societal, and technological landscape, and that this is an institution that they are very proud of. That's what I would tell you. Very proud of. That's what I want.
Well, that brings us to the end of our time today, Dr. Hardin. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, and I hope to have you back on another episode sometime soon.
Go Bobcats.
Go Bobcats. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and like, and find other episodes on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube podcasts. Until next time, when I ask my next guest, who are you? I'm Joel Vanner. Bye for now.